are these people?
Speaking of fighting back, you brought a story closer to home. Um,
To me, at least. But I think as far as the issue, I think is very significant and not unique, but in what the ask is, which is a lot closer to what I think we've been saying here, and I think just and in general. But like I said, this is a local DC story, at least for me. So Compliments Only is a sub shop. But the workers there are going on strike. They're looking to unionize, and they're looking for a minimum wage, which you would think that would be a story that is talked about more. Like
yep.
a lot of places, depending on where it is asking for a minimum wage, Whereas here at this sandwich shop, small business, they're asking for a living wage.
Yeah.
So let's catch up. So this is written in DCist. This is a local DC newspaper, and it's written by Amanda Michelle Gomez, where she writes, "Workers at beloved DC sandwich shop, compliments only, seek to unionize." So she writes, "Employees of beloved DC sandwich shop, compliments only, are trying to form a union and seeking a 21 per hour wage. Last June, in late June, a majority of the workers, 8 out of an estimated 10 employees, first asked owners Pete Stilkove and Emily Sipes to recognize their union, but they declined, according to multiple workers. They went public with their union drive this past weekend, so this happened last month.
Okay.
When employees, including several who walked off mid-shift, demonstrated at the DuPont Circle sandwich shop. Compliments Only owners did not respond to repeated requests for an interview. But the owners did provide a statement to Eater, saying they respect their employees' rights to express their opinions in a lawful manner.
Which
They
is
did
they
not
have
share
to
their
say.
thoughts.
Like that's bare
Right.
minimum.
They did not share their thoughts, however, on their workers' union drive, but emphasized they care about their employees. 3 employees and about 2 dozen supporters visited the sandwich shop Saturday with the intention of picketing if owners again declined to recognize their union. We're going to ask you again to recognize us as a union and give us a wage increase, employees Zach Slavin, Koltsikov, and Sipes, who were working that day. Sipes said it's nothing they can answer at the moment, as a few dozen people, including patrons and press, watched from inside the shop. So, in other words, they didn't want to out themselves. Seconds later, 3 employees from behind the counter walked off their shifts, leaving Sitkov, a manager, and 2 other employees to make sandwiches for the lunchtime rush. The 6 employees and their supporters then exited the shop to picket just outside. They picketed for roughly an hour as the shop remained open. This isn't targeted towards Pete and Emily. This isn't malicious in any way. I still hold a deep respect for the both of them, said Dominic Pezzuto, who walked out Saturday. It's just that we're unhappy. And we tried to come to them privately multiple times, and it didn't work. And it feels like our hand was pushed and we want to get recognized. We're not going to back down. The employees started to talk about forming a union this past spring because the owners declined to meaningfully increase their wages when they individually asked, multiple employees say. They said their bosses offered 25 cents per hour increase or so, but that's about it. In June, when they asked for a union recognition, they submitted a petition asking for that at a minimum of $21 an hour, according to multiple workers. But the owners said they couldn't afford to at this time. Instead, the owners offered a $17 hourly wage, which left them feeling slighted because the city's minimum wage was about to increase to $17 last month. On July 6th, they asked again for the wage increase, as well as collective bargaining agreement within 90 days. But their bosses did not give them clear answer, which prompted the July 15th demonstration, the employees said. The Compliments Only owners told Eater that they had been committed to providing compensation and benefits that were consistent with industries for small local enterprises. They declined to share compensation information about their employees, saying personal issues are private, Eater reported. We recognize that at times Good people with the best of intentions will encounter areas of disagreement. To that end, we respect unconditionally our employees' right to express their opinions in a lawful manner and wish them continued success as employees of Compliments. Oh God, this is such
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's just such. I can't even say like. This is just such a vague and
Yes.
like non-committal statement here. Like, oh
Yep,
God,
it's
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Please disperse.
just like, yeah, just get out of here. Don't worry about it.
Dominic Pizzuto said they earn the city's minimum wage. Now, prior to it being increased, it was 15, and now it's 17, and struggle to afford to live in DC. If management doesn't recognize their union for signed union cards, workers would have to file for a formal election through the National Labor Relations Board. Workers generally dislike elections because the process is time-consuming and slows down their momentum to bargain for a contract. United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 400, which would be the bargaining agent if workers succeed in unionizing, says a majority of compliments-only employees that are union eligible would sign cards. Pizzuto started working at the shop in April and earns the city's minimum wage of $17 an hour. They said they are struggling to find an apartment with their current hourly wage, and I'll explain more in a minute why. But they hesitate to quit in search of a better paying job because they'd rather stay at Compliments Only and Unionize so they can bargain for wages they think that they and their colleagues deserve. Slavin, who's worked at Compliments Only for nearly 2 years and earned $17.50, feels similarly. He points out that the living wage in DC is $22 an hour for a childless adult, according to MIT's living wage calculator. Slavin said he's disappointed by the owner's response thus far. And actually, I did pull it up.
Well, and you live here. What? How do you feel $22 an hour would do you here?
Honestly, even that, and actually, let me do some quick math.
Yeah.
So give me 1 second.
2 plus 2 is 4.
22.
Yeah, that's quick math.
40. So $22 an hour, if you assuming you work for a full year, is just under $46K a year.
Okay.
There's no way, even like with that the living wage, you can get by on that in DC. Like the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment here is $1,800 a month. That's average.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your month,
So,
a month, like a month.
A month.
Fuck. All right.
That's average. Like easily, depending where you live in DC, like even for a studio, you could probably be pushing to around now like 2,000 a month for a studio. I think that's more typical. So that is basically, and I haven't done the math. That's basically half of your salary right there, just for housing alone.
So this would be at 22 an hour. You're talking like, what is that? A year? You just did this, right?
Just under
47.
47. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you take out $2,000 for a fucking his house, like a place to live.
Yeah, that's 24,000. Yeah, so that's basically just about half your rent.
How are they claiming that that's the living wage then? Like when was that done? In 2019?
Right.
2019?
2019. So we should probably look for something
more recent, but that's honestly, what they're going off here too. They might not have done it since then.
That's what they're going off here. So if anything, really, like
this consensus
is still
shit,
a low ball. Right, but it's still a low ball. I would argue that it'd be more closer to 25.
25, 26, 30.
Yeah. 25 to 30, I think, would be more realistic.
And if I was the union guy, I'd come in asking for 50. Like,
right.
You know, and then they'll give you half of that. Like, so, I mean, that's
So
how,
really, honestly, to be honest, I said they were asking for a living wage. It is given the numbers here,
yeah.
this again, this is back in 2019, but given inflation right now, you know, yeah, I would argue that it should be probably closer. They should be asking for closer to 25.
Oh,
So
the next statement kind
um,
of continues what we're fucking saying.
right. We can't afford $17 sandwiches like the shop sells, he tells DCist WAMU on Saturday. It really feels unfair that we're giving our labor and working really hard to make this place as great as it is and not being compensated adequately to live reasonably comfortable lives. So I also checked this weeks ago when I first thought I was going to do this story a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Sandwiches there typically range from $11 to $18.
Which is
So
wild. The fuck they putting on that shit? Gold leaf? Like,
right,
foie gras gold leaf?
right.
Like,
Like no, but like food, like buying food
I
here,
know.
like it's and like even for us, like
Yeah, the $30 burger.
it's
You're like, what the fuck? It's fucking hamburger. How can you like
but not even that. Like even McDonald's, like you're spending
McDonald's?
around like maybe around 15 for a meal now.
Right.
About
Yeah, for
so
the worst food in the world, like, you know. So, Desert
like
Mantis in
that's
chat. What happened to the $5 sub?
right,
Well, it almost put Subway out of business, is what happened. Like,
right,
that's what fucking happened. They said, oh yeah, let's make sure we tie our biggest seller with a price, and then never be able to change that for fucking months.
years.
Right.
That was a campaign for them for years.
Years.
So,
right. Yeah. So,
and it worked, but they weren't
yeah,
making
it
money
cost
off
them
of it.
so much money at the end of the day because like they couldn't
They had to downsize
keep up
because
with
of that.
right. Yeah, which fired a ton of workers, which like you saw stores going from like 4 people at the subway to like 1.
One.
Right. Like fucking, Quentin's back there in the fucking back making everyone sandwiches at Rush. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, do I need to come back there and help you, bro? Like, what's going on?
Also, just to give you some context here for this sandwich shop and where it's located, it's in DuPont Circle, which is, for those of you who know DC, it's like upscale, like old neighborhood. So
Right.
The money
typically
is
like
there.
exactly. So like pre-pandemic, like a lot of people would commute into DuPont Center. So these are typically people who are living in Maryland or Virginia who are commuting in to go into this area and would, like this would have been a place where people would go for lunch at lunchtime. So typically this would be in an area where people would have money relatively to spend like $15 for a sandwich, but since the pandemic, like people, although, now the mayor is pushing and now Biden is pushing for people to return to work now in person. So,
and giving
not
your
sure
fucking
how
money for college debt, we definitely need that money back. And, essentially bend over,
right.
So,
But yeah, sandwiches, I'll say on average, a sandwich there is about $15
yeah.
in this place. So, but given where it is, and I'm sure rent, is also kind of driving that cost. But essentially, it's like they get paid a sandwich an hour. Like, the way to think of it, it's a sandwich an hour.
That's fucking wild.
That's what I should have titled this.
Honestly, yeah, a sandwich an hour. Sounds like it sounds like someone's memoir,
Right.
Um.
Anyway, Zach Slavin says he has 3 jobs and his part-time gig at Compliments Only pays the least. This is one of the most physically demanding and the hardest in a lot of ways, and it pays by far the least, he says. That is unfair for me, and even more so unfair for my coworkers who are here full-time. Oh God.
Oh,
So if he, oh, Jesus, if he's
yep.
part time, can't imagine
Uh-huh.
what the full time like. Yeah. So
Dude, restaurant work, especially restaurant work like that, is fucking hell. It's the
yeah, I
worst.
know. Yeah, I worked very briefly at a place like this, like a super sandwich shop for a few
Right.
months before I went to Africa, and
It's
it's long,
well,
it's
the worst
tiring.
part is fucking people. Like normally,
Yes,
I've worked both. Like normal restaurant, you can be back of house, never see anyone. It's lovely.
right.
I mean, it's not. It's super hard work there too, but you know, like at least you don't have to deal with like what the servers and waitresses have to. Like at these
Yeah,
places, you got to do both and be point of sale all at the same time.
right. Yeah,
Like
that was me. Like I had to make the sandwiches. I didn't have to make the soup. I had to make sure, depending on the soup, to keep
it
it
was out
warm or
that day,
cold,
right?
depending
Yeah.
if
Open
it
the
was out
bag,
that
pour
day.
it in
So
the
they
thing, you know.
no. Not soup did not come in bags. They were made in house,
Right.
and so making sure, obviously, if the soups were hot, that they stayed hot. If they were cold, they were remain cold. If it was like a gazpacho or something over the summer, so you
Right.
had to do all that. Plus, I had to make the sandwiches too. So yeah, it was.
And you have to prep for all
I
that a
don't
lot of
remember how much.
times. Someone does get
Yeah,
everything out,
I
put
don't
out.
remember. I don't remember how much I got paid, but it was like, I think at that time like 10,
Right.
like $10 to $11 an hour is what I was getting. This was back
Yep.
in like 2010.
And a lot of times when
So
you're like literally the only person there in some of these cases, like you get more than 4 people in, and it's like that's an hour and a half of work sometimes. Like
right,
depending, you know, like of just nonstop, just your brain constantly doing something, you know.
right.
So like CEOs would have been
Um,
taking a nap like a third of the way through, you know. So, ugh,
anyway, Sitcove and Sipes opened compliments only during the height of the pandemic, when they found themselves out of work with the closure of the Coconut Club, where Sitcove was sous chef and Sipes a co-owner and general manager. The sub shop was located on 14th Street Northwest for more than a year, then relocated to DuPont Circle in 2022. It's become a popular spot for breakfast and lunch since opening.
mm-hmm.
Nope.
There you go.
This weekend's action garnered a lot of attention on social media, in part because the establishment is a darling of the local food world. It just won a Rammy Award, a local honor given out by the Restaurant Association Metropolitan Washington. The discrepancy between the shop's accolades and the workers' pay is the motivation behind the union drive, multiple workers said. So they actually use some leverage here in terms of, oh, like we're actually getting recognized for the good job that we're doing. Give us more money. The work we do isn't the bare minimum. So to be paid in that way is incredibly disrespectful, said Critter Woodward, who worked at Compliments Only since its opening in DuPont Circle location and earns $19 an hour. So I would probably guess that's probably the minimum, the full-time rate, I would guess.
Right.
We are professionals. This is just as real of an industry as any other one. I love what I do. I'm good at it. I want to be doing it for a long time, and I don't feel supported to be doing it. Critter Woodward's
Oh,
leads
sorry.
demonstration outside of Compliments Only. The bottom line is that we make Compliments Only what it is, and we want to be doing this for a long time, they said. But we need support, we need recognition of our union, and we need 21 an hour. Woodward said a union won't help them assure higher wages, but formalize workplace policies. There's no structure in place for discussion or recourse, they said, which can lead to communication breakdowns. Compliments Only is part of a greater trend of food service workers who sought to unionize in recent years due to low pay and poor workplace conditions that have long plagued the industry. The workers are looking to join the United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 400, It represents thousands of local grocery store workers. Their labor group has also supported the employees of Politics and Prose. That's a very popular restaurant slash meeting place here.
Gotcha.
Like a lot of shout out to Misty when Misty was here doing her Assange event in October. We ended the event at Politics and Prose. So it's very well known for like famous people or like offers to come in, and do presentations, stuff like that in DC. So yeah. Cool. So yeah, interesting story, but I think it kind of goes along with stories that I know you and Indy have talked about and how do we miss that in terms of like, like a lot of places now, a lot of industries now are asking for money. But as I said, this was interesting in the sense that they say living wage. It's really not, given the numbers that they've given. Yeah. And even that, they're kind of still lowballing. But it is recently more than the minimum wage of what it is in DC. And the idea that even though they ask for $21 an hour, it's still not enough relatively, especially if you work full time, to be able to afford rent or mortgage here. And then like just how expensive DC is, it is not sustainable to be able to have that be your only job and make an honest living. And this is what I think a lot of these workers are saying. Like they want to make an honest day's work, and doing honest living, and they want to be compensated that matches, their talent and their work, and they feel slighted, and they're asking for more. So I appreciate them asking beyond what I think is typical, but as you implied and as you said, they could probably even ask for more than that.
Yeah. I mean, at least going in, right? Like, don't ask for the exact thing you feel like you need. You need to, like, pad that a little. If your first demand is 50, they might give you, like, 30. When you started out, you thought you should ask for, like, 21, 25. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is part of it. And you should also have it tied to inflation. Like, you should tie it to something, cost of living.
The issue that I'm thinking of right now, and we talked about this with Jose a couple of weeks. Was it a couple of weeks or last week?
I think so.
We had him on.
Week ago,
last week.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, last week, when we're talking about the UPS workers and them asking for higher wages, if they get it, assuming because they're voting for this tentative agreement right now.
Yeah.
If it goes through, that's not to say that UPS won't cut hours, even though they made more money. That's the same thing that could happen here. We can give you what you want, but that means we're going to cut your hours, so that way we don't lose too much of a profit.
Yep. And it also fucks over your full time on top of that, because they're not getting the full things that they wanted either. Like, recently I saw, now I'm blanking on Marvel, VFX team is starting to unionize as well. Mm-hmm. So you might start seeing VFX house unions too, which they put in so much work in so little time, and like to get stuff done and get no representation, So,
well, I think that they may not do it, especially if AI becomes more of a stronger thing. This is
but who do you think is going to be doing that? Who do you think is going to be using the AI? It's going to be those guys. What guys that?
I think I actually was listening to something last night that Disney is seriously looking into AI.
Yes, they all are, because they're. Why wouldn't they? Like, you get a person who can code that kind of stuff really well, and bam, there's your next movie written, done. Like,
right.
You know, so it's you're going to see, that's why the VFX industry should be interested, because they're the ones that are going to be tasked with using these tools, right? And they're going to get a lot less of them are going to get paid because of that. So they should definitely be the ones figuring out who and how and why, and especially with how much money all that stuff is going to require, you know? So, like, and the rules in place for that. I think they should definitely get some say-so, as well as the writers, you know, because they're going to lose a ton of them too. But, and these are the kind of stuff that I feel like a lot of people miss because they're too focused on culture wars.